Hi, I'm Jeff Bermudez.
And I'm Omar Kadri.
Welcome to The Collective Journey.
Join us as we explore some of the most promising talents, thought leaders, and change influencers in our city and beyond.
As we uncover these hidden gems, I hope you'll find that they're people just like you and I, with hopes and dreams and gifts that they would like to show to the world.
It is our mission to share their work, to share their story, and to appreciate what our community is capable of producing.
This is my adventure.
This is your adventure.
This is our collective journey. Welcome to this week's episode. Today we welcome an individual by the name of Roque Argueta. He hails from the West Coast but now calls Ontario his home. Our guest today brings a perspective from BC as well as the different places he's lived in. He has been able to run his own business and has been quite successful. He plans to use the lessons learned from these experiences and parlay them into the future. We extend a collective warm welcome to Roque as we begin this first installment.
Actually, originally I was born in Seattle, Washington. So American, dual citizenship. And we moved to Calgary after that, lived there for about 8 years. And then we moved to Vancouver, which I lived there for 20 years, most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then been in Ontario ever since. I also did a small stint in Sweden.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I lived there for a year, actually.
How long were you in Seattle, Washington?
Just 2 years. I was a baby, so I don't remember
Okay.
too much. But I go there. Well, I try to go there as often as I can. It's a beautiful city. If you guys ever get a chance to go,
So you don't remember being around for the Seattle Supersonics days?
actually, I do, and that was actually my go-to basketball team. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember Gary Payton and
Sean Kemp.
That was the duo.
Yeah.
And actually, till this day, my favorite player is Gary Payton,
The glove.
the glove.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
number 20 is still one of my lucky numbers.
That's awesome.
So what made you come to Ontario then?
So I came here to run a small business. So I was doing a fundraising solutions business. So I was working with charities and nonprofit organizations, and basically they would outsource groups like myself to do the fundraising for them. So there was different ways that we could do the fundraising. A lot of the stuff we would do was very face to face, getting sponsorships, getting businesses maybe to sign up, private donors, individuals, stuff like that.
Did you do this in the West Coast as well?
I did, yeah. So I actually started out in the West Coast in Vancouver, and there was a lot of competition. So seeing that Ontario has a bigger population, and there's smaller markets, just like London and Windsor and Hamilton, where you could actually succeed and maybe there wouldn't be as much competition, where you could grow and expand and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's basically what originally brought me out here, and kind of been here ever since. So
Why don't you talk about Vancouver a little bit? Because I think people from Ontario, they kind of like the idea of the West Coast.
the West Coast, yeah, the West Coast it's definitely a different world out there. It's a very West Coast vibe. I mean, we have the ocean, we have beaches, a lot of green space. So, yeah, it's definitely a different beast out there. Obviously every time I go back there, get to see family and friends, and it's always a good time. I find people are also a lot more relaxed. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, it's a beautiful place. I don't know if you guys ever been there?
Yeah, I was actually there in May. I went
Awesome.
on vacation to do the orca watching.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
oh, nice.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty cool experience. And yeah, I realized that same thing as well, where everyone is just a lot more chill and relaxed. The biggest thing I noticed was probably how much cleaner it is. I feel
Really?
like people put a lot more effort.
Like the streets, or
Yeah, the streets, there's not a lot of I didn't see as much litter there, and there's I feel like their traffic system it just works a lot better. It doesn't look cluttered as
yeah,
much.
cleaner. I could definitely agree on that. I don't know about the traffic because you got to live there really to see what the traffic.
I was
is
only
like.
there for like a week, so
No, I know, but I could definitely agree on that. Probably because nature is so close to everyone that they're really conscious about like, hey, this is our backyard. Like we should keep it clean. The waters are very conscious about that. Recycling is super huge out there. So
one of my favorite parts about being there that I remember is that the skate parks there, people actually use them. I realized like here in London we have a few, but like you never see like people actively practicing skateboarding.
And they're big out there.
But
like
when you go there, it's like a huge culture there.
But the parks are big too. Like there's a lot of ground and a lot of things you can do on them, right?
There's something about the Pacific Northwest. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Like you get that patch of like Oregon, Washington, Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's very diverse too, ecologically too.
I think it's because you have the ocean right there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that opens a lot of opportunities to see a lot of different things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily see living in a different place that's not on the coast. And if you like seafood, I mean, obviously that's a bonus, right? You can get a lot of fresh seafood. There's tons of sushi out there. So like they have here in Ontario, what I've noticed, they have a lot of Tim Hortons. Well, in Vancouver, they have a lot of sushi. So if you want cheap sushi, good fresh sushi, they have lots of sushi.
Wait, so you're saying the sushi here is not like you're disappointed in the sushi here? You would say, or it's like it's a downgrade?
I wouldn't say it's a downgrade. It's I don't know. It's hard to compare the two. It's so different, right? Like when you can get fresh oysters and shrimp, stuff like that. Crabs, right? So it's a little bit different, right? Well, I guess think of it like this. So let's say if you were young, dumb, and broke. But no, if whatever, let's say you didn't have a lot of money, you could just go sit at the beach and just watch the waves or watch the sunsets, and that could be relaxing on its own, right? So whether you have a stressful day, well, you could just take a walk in your backyard and it's all around you, right? So I think that's why it could be a little bit different.
Yeah.
A little bit, more relaxed, I guess you could say.
Well, my first experience in Canada was in Vancouver.
Really?
It was like a very brief 3-day stint, and then we moved to Ontario.
So you got family there?
No, that was like our first landing spot.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Seeing Canada for the first ever time. And on our second day, we went to Stanley Park. It was like a nice rainy afternoon, and I was like, this is not a real place. This is not a real place. This is
Stanley Park's actually
it's gorgeous.
It's
like the leaves are beautiful, the trees are nice, the city's like so clean. You get that refreshing feel of like air. Yeah, I'd love to come out maybe with a little more money, because you gotta have money if you live there.
Anytime you want to come out, you let me know. I got a lot of friends. We could put you up somewhere.
Yeah, I like the festivals.
Get tour guides. Oh, there's tons of festivals.
Yeah.
Like for whatever you're into.
Like you showed me like a beach festival of yours once.
Oh yeah. That was. Those are the in the summertime they do a drum circle every Tuesday.
Yeah.
At Third Beach, if you're familiar. But it's just the weirdest thing. If you've never experienced it, it's something I would definitely say.
And you can just drop in.
Yeah, you just drop in. Like, actually, it's funny because the way I found out about it, I was bike riding around the seawall, and I'm going around this bend, and I'm like, because you're right on the ocean, right? So, and you're doing the seawall, and I can hear like a drum beating, and I'm like, what is going on? So I keep going, and finally I turn the bend, and it's just like all these sounds, like all these people playing drums and like tambourine, and I'm just like, what is going on? And there's people like drinking on the beach, and there's people smoking, and you're not really supposed to be smoking or drinking on parks and recs. But so I was like, oh, I gotta check this out, and I went and talked to some people. So like, what's going on here? And they're like, it's a drum circle. You don't know about the drum circle? I'm like, this is the first time ever hearing about this. And they're like, oh, stay, it gets better. Like, they just started at 5, and it goes from like 5 basically to like midnight, and it's basically they're they're waiting until the sun sets, and then they get more people come, and it gets louder and it gets bigger, and it's pretty interesting.
What are the winters like there?
Compared to here, they're very mild.
Very mild.
Very mild.
What's the coldest?
The coldest, that could vary. Like, I would say any given year would probably go -10 would be like the coldest it gets. But and there's not a lot of snow. So when it snows, you'll be lucky if it stays for 3 days, because usually it'll start raining and then the rain will melt and then it's pretty much gone. But the one thing about Vancouver winters that you really got to understand is it's about 3 months of straight gray skies and probably a lot of rain. So if you can get over that, like, you'll be fine. But the thing is, a lot of people get like they go mentally crazy.
Well, that sounds pretty manageable compared to here.
Well,
I don't think that sounds like something to be too depressed.
Do they get
about.
like
I'll settle for
that?
that.
Is it like seasonal depression type of thing?
I mean, I guess it can be. Like, it's just think about it. You wake up and, like, whether you go to work early and then it's dark.
Yeah.
And then you come back and it's dark. And then maybe if you get out for lunch or something and it's just gray skies.
Yeah.
So that's all you see basically for like 3 months. I mean, there'll be some sunny days, but it's not like here, like in London, like it could be a blizzard storm, but then there could be like sun that comes out. So like that part is really nice, but the cold obviously is like really bitter, right? So
At least your face doesn't hurt.
yeah, I guess
That's a big thing.
I guess as long as you have a raincoat or an umbrella, you're pretty much good to go. So
As like an outsider coming into the London community, what are some things about London that you like? That kind of like stand out?
That stand out. I guess the biggest thing for me, so I've always lived in big cities.
Yep.
So like the smallest city that I ever lived in was Calgary, and that's like 1 million people, right? So I've always lived in these cities that had millions of people in them. And London is, there's like 380,000 people or something like that.
Approximately.
So to me, it's such a small community, even though it is 380,000 people. It's still such a small community where I see these people who like have maybe lived here their whole life, and they have these relationships that they've built for 15, 20 years, and I think that way you can build a lot of like networking people or connections. So in that sense, it's really cool. And also when I was like doing my business, like being able to network myself, I found that like that was able to open me to other doors, that could open other possibilities. But in that sense is what I really like about it. It's very, small in that sense where, you could probably make a name for yourself if you really tried and you really worked hard at it, right?
That's a good way of looking at it, I guess. Like with a smaller population, it's more manageable to build those sorts of business rapports that you need to do, right?
Well, exactly. Yeah, there's I guess the good and the bad, right? The good is it's smaller, less competition, but at the same time, you're probably gonna it's gonna be harder to get those really good jobs, I think, because unless a lot of people or stuff like that. I just think I guess it depends on how you look at it. I guess if you live here, you're kind of like, oh, this is small and there's nothing happening in London. I want to go somewhere else. Well, if you go to a bigger city, well, you got to understand you're competing with more people.
Compared to a city like Toronto or Calgary or Vancouver, there's not really like a lot of activities to do. But since you have so many people around and the community is so much like closer together, there's a lot more opportunity to build, solid, long-lasting relationships.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too that I saw too, just when I was doing my business and just networking myself, and just the amount of stuff that's going on in London, like a lot of like grassroots, whether it be like nonprofit or for profit, like, but just like I guess being in a bigger city, you don't get to see that as often. As London, it's like you can see it. You can see some of these things happening, right? Like, or even like on social media, because everyone kind of knows everyone, or they kind of have ran into each other or through other friends, that kind of stuff.
Fine. Well, I've always been told that London hits like a happy medium, because it's not so big of a city that it's like Toronto, Calgary, but it's not so small that it's like, you know,
I grew up here, so
like
I guess that's why my perspective's
middle
a
of
little
nowhere
different.
type of town, you know, where there's like 600 people. There's enough people, but it's slow enough that you get to know the community a little better. Like
So-
it provides you with the resources of a big city that it mimics it quite a bit, but the life is slow enough that you get to have a more close-knit relationship.
And think of it like this too, because you know, growing up in a big city and like having to get to places, especially if you're driving, like you're probably looking at a 45-minute drive, right, with the wait and traffic and everything. And then you come to London and it's like, man, you can get from one end to the other end of the town in 15 minutes. And like that to me like blew my mind. I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
That's really interesting when you compare it to our episode with Sarah, because
Yeah.
she was kind of saying the exact opposite. She was saying like the transportation here was like a huge issue.
Well, public
What?
transportation.
Public.
Oh,
Yeah.
public, yeah. Well, that's a
I
whole
guess,
different-
yeah.
That's a whole different story.
Self-transportation.
I guess. What would be like your title? Like, are you a startup? Are you a CEO? Like, how does that work?
I was entrepreneur. That's basically what I was. Like I basically started it from the ground up, and I didn't have a lot of money. You know, I didn't have like a lot of capital, that kind of stuff. And I took basically everything that I had, and like I was doing this in Vancouver. But the thing is, you know, property tax is so high, so leasing's going to be high. Obviously, your costs are always going to run a little bit higher. So, you know, like the potential for you to have a very successful business is going to be a lot harder. So when I came out here and then I did my prospecting in Toronto, I really saw that, you know, outside of Toronto, there's other markets. You know, there's Hamilton, there's Kitchener-Waterloo, there's Windsor, London. And, you know, these are big enough markets where you can thrive and you can have success. But, yeah, and, you know, obviously you got to work hard at it. But at the same time, you're not having to deal with the same amount of things as living in a big city.
So do you still do this?
I don't, unfortunately. I had to shut it down.
Okay.
And honestly, it was the greatest experience in life. Like doing my business, especially for the last like 2 years, what I went through and what I learned was like the best experience that I ever had working in any industry. And I've worked in like a lot of different jobs. And I think what it did was it actually opened up my eyes to being an entrepreneur, or, you know, working for yourself, or if you're an independent contractor, whatever it is, the kind of life that you could have doing that. But it also opened up my eyes to like, I know eventually I want to run my own business. Like, I just don't know what. Like, I'm really testing the market right now with a lot of different ideas and connecting with a lot of people that inspire me and that, you know, hopefully will take me to that direction. But yeah, so there's a couple things that I'm kind of working on with some people that I've actually been able to connect from doing that business. So, you know, like to me, it's kind of bittersweet that I had to leave that behind, but at the same time, I've been able to network myself, and it's opened some doors for some other things for me to do. So
Okay, well, there's something to be said about people who choose to be entrepreneurs, because it's a very voluntary thing. Because, you know, you have to have a certain quality to you, an appetite for risk, to be able to, you know, go into the unknown and not depend on a constant paycheck of a predetermined amount. But then what you get with that, if it does succeed, is your schedule, your pay. You get to dictate the life, and I think that's what appeals to so many of them.
yeah, like I think the biggest thing was like, so when I started, you know, my business, the first 6 months, or I guess going into the 6th month, I actually was like, okay, is this what I'm gonna do, or do I just stop right now? Do I just stop and quit, and just, you know, I'll be at home, like I'll be comfortable, and I mean I could find another job, no problem. Or, you know, do I just give up that easily, or do I, you know, I could really work hard to do something and really possibly make something of myself? You know, will it help me to grow, expand my mind? Like, there were so many different things that were crossing my mind, and till this day, I never regret the decision I made of like, all right, just keep going. You got to work hard, and you'll get to where you want to be. But like I said, it opened up my eyes to a lot of different things, and it also opened up a lot of doors to a lot of different opportunities. And not only just here or back home in Vancouver, like it's opened the doors to like other places and possibly going to other cities or working with other people. So it's interesting in that sense. So.
One of my professors, he always tells us that in order to be successful, you have to fail early and fail often. Would you like be able to give like a specific example of a failure that you went through that taught you, that ended up becoming a learning experience?
I think there's a lot of things I probably could have done better, right? Like I didn't really have like a mentor, and I didn't really, I guess for me, I didn't want to reach out to people. Like I didn't want to like ask for help or, hey, how do you do this? Because I thought maybe it was a sign of weakness, or I didn't know what I was doing. So I felt like maybe that I could have done better. I could have reached out to some people. But I think the other thing too, once, I started making money, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. I'm making more money than I've ever made before. And, obviously, when you're making more money, you're probably going to be spending more money. And then it got to one point where I hit kind of like a roadblock. And then I was like, oh, I'll get over this hump. But what ended up happening was, as you're working for yourself, like, and I had people that were working under me. So like, obviously I had to make sure they were getting paid and stuff. I didn't pay myself for 3 weeks. And then, the first week I was like, okay, I'll get through this. Then the second week I was like, ooh, all right, this is getting a little tough. And then the third week I was like, okay, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing with myself? Like, everyone's getting paid and I'm not getting paid. Like, what is going on here? Yeah. Right? So at that point, I really kind of had to reevaluate, like, okay, well, what am I doing? But that, I had to go through that to kind of, to show me that, like, hey, this isn't just going to be an easy thing to just say, like, this is what you have to do, and then you're going to make money, and then you're all good. Like, even if you're your own boss, or you're an entrepreneur, independent contractor, whatever you are, you still have to work. Like, you still have to work hard at it. And the harder you work, the more you're going to get out of it, right? The more you'll be able to, like, gain, the more you'll be able to, like, earn, the more you'll be able to, like, grow your business. So, if you're going to go that route, you got to understand it's going to be a lot of work. And it's not just going to be, like, for a year or two. Like, this is, like, you got to be in it for the long term, 5-10 years. And that's how you're really going to start to grow a really successful business, right?
So to build on that, a lot of entrepreneurs have this in common. There's a starting point. Like, they saw someone do this and succeed. And that's what sparked their interest in doing something like that. So are there any figureheads or linchpins that you looked up to before getting into these types of ventures?
Well, so my dad, he was his own boss. He was an independent contractor. And, he's basically always ran his businesses. He's had a lot of different businesses. And just being able to see that, hey, he can make his own kind of schedule, but within a certain frame. Like, obviously he has to be operational for his business to succeed. But, at the same time, there's a lot of, flexibility, right? Like if it's, hey, you got to take the kids to a sports game or, to soccer or whatever, then, hey, he has the flexibility to do that. Or, hey, families coming in, you could take some time off to, obviously host them and show them around and that kind of stuff. But I guess that was the first person I ever saw that kind of was running their business and was having some sort of success. I wouldn't say my dad was like the inspirational person that kind of like, made me want to go into that. Because I was actually I was kind of the type of person that like I needed stability, where I needed a job that's going to pay good and, it's going to be 40 hours a week or more. Or like I always thought like joining a union would be like a good thing. And it was just kind of weird because I left a position where, You know, I had a career and you know, I had opportunity to grow, but they actually got bought out by another company, and they were American owned. So they started to make a lot of different changes and decisions that were affecting the people that were working there, and possibly people that, you know, may have been able to work themselves up to move up. And that's when I was like, okay, wait, do I really want to stick around and wait and see what happens, or, you know what I mean? So I left and I took, you know, whatever my severance package and everything. I was like, you know what, this is good, and I have money saved up. I'm going to go just relax a little bit and then just try to find myself, see what I want to do. And then this opportunity came up with a friend of mine, and, you know, we talked to other people that were doing kind of the same thing, and we were like, man, look at how these guys are living. They're living pretty good, and it looks like they're happy, and they're being able to do a lot of different things. So I was like, maybe let's give this a shot, see where it takes me, right? And I said, hey, you know what? I have a couple months to spare, so let's give it a shot and see where it goes. And that's kind of how I guess I kind of fell into it.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But, and then it just kind of just spearheaded, just kept going.
So again, going back to that entrepreneur thing, you really wanted to dictate what you made. I spoke to one of my friends who was doing his own business, and he said, my 1 hour is not $20. My 1 hour is what I say it is, or how much I put into it. And that's kind of the attitude that they go into it with.
Yeah, I guess for me, like, it wasn't so much like, oh, you know, I want to make all this money. I want to be rich. For me, it was like, I had worked for all these different companies that were about profits.
Yeah, but you know what you're worth.
Yeah. Like, I guess working in those companies, I was like, you know, I'm not getting paid what I think I'm worth.
Yeah.
But also, like, seeing the greed in those corporations where they're like, you know, profits over people. You know, if people were like sick or something like that, like, they didn't really care about that. They were just like, well, we need to run this business and we need to make money, like, blah, blah, blah. What's the bottom line? So for me, I was like, well, I need to do something that's going to align more with my values. You know what I mean? I need to make sure that, first of all, I enjoy what I'm doing, right? Because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to want to give it your all or work hard at it. But something that's going to align with you, like, okay, is this something that I enjoy doing? Is there a value into what I'm doing? And, like, you know, is this helping people, if that's something you want to do, or whatever it is? But for me, it was like, I know what I want to do, and I know how I want to be able to, or I want to be able to do something that's going to relate to me and my core values, right?
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the show. That's all the time that we have for this week. But join us again next episode as we conclude our conversation with this week's guest. If you or somebody you know would like to be on the show, hit us up on any of our social media. We are Collective Journey on Facebook. We are Collective Journey on YouTube. We are Collective_Journey on Instagram. And always remember, this is not just my adventure, but it's yours as well. This is our collective journey.